91.3 Capital FM. My name is Ibrahim Nganda. I am sitting in for Oscar Semwe Msoke, who is using the northern bypass under construction. Usually the blame is on Mr. Museveni, who closes the road. But now part of it is closed because of the construction. We will certainly be discussing the funeral of the Pope, which is the story covering the whole world. We have Tororo split into some 2-3 tribal districts because the Iteswet there and the Japador, I think they should live alone, independent of each other, but continue living in the same country. One of them is a gangster here. He will be telling us why, if they want to continue living in Uganda, why do they want to live independent and separate of each other in Tororo? Ofono Pondo is here, the director of the media center, who has announced that he will be contesting for parliament on the ticket of the older persons. They don't want to be called elderly, older persons. We have 5 of them in parliament. But before we do that, as Oscar also tried to maneuver his way here, we will be discussing energy and tariffs. Not the tariffs of Donald Trump, but tariffs in Uganda. As you are aware, all of you, Parliament is discussing and in the final stages of budget consideration. Many things are coming. Who will take which amount of money? But you're also considering tax bills. 7 of them are before the Finance Committee. I sit on both Budget and Finance Committee. And in the Finance Committee, regularly the government comes to ask for a waiver for Bujagali because they want to keep the power tariffs low. So that's why they do those waivers and so on and so forth. So in the studio this morning, we have Professor Samuel Sejaka. I told him as he was entering, I used still at UDB. Said, no, I have moved on. He does many things, but today he's here as a CPA and team leader at MAT, Abacus Business School. Professor, you're welcome.
Thank you, Honorable. Happy to be here once again.
Thank you. We have the man himself, Chief Finance Officer, the people who are benefiting from waivers and charging us a lot. You know, I have been making a lot of noise here. We power from the old Jinja dams is at 3% the unit, and theirs is at around between 9 and 11. So I keep complaining. I am happy God has brought him. The Chief Finance Officer of Bujagali Energy, Mr. Mayuko Taremwa Kananura. You're welcome.
Thank you, Honorable Semuju. Good morning, listeners. And I'm happy to be here. I will answer all those questions.
We'll start with you before we go to Professor Sejaka. The complaint from an ordinary Ugandan, including MPs, and MPs are ordinary, by the way, because at senior 6 you can enter parliament. So we are ordinary people. So we need to understand 2 things. First, the disparity. We are told from the dams constructed using Ugandan money, the old dams in Jinja, the power there is sold at 3 cents. You will explain to the ordinary listener to understand those cents, whether they are in shilling, in dollar, and the way you measure those units. But from Bujagali at either 9 or 11 cents, and we are at the same time buying power very expensively from Bujagali, but also giving them waivers. Almost in every financial year, all the tax bills will have a waiver. So as the world quarrels with Trump over their tariffs, and so can we start from you? Please, let us understand why and the benefit of this contract between Uganda and Bujagali. Maybe you are the one to blame for the high power tariffs in the country.
Thank you very much, Honorable Semuju. Good morning once again, listeners and viewers. I will start with this question, and members who are listening to us here in the studio, we need to put this question in context. Bujagali came to Uganda through a formal procurement process, and that process had bidders who bidded, and from the proposals that were submitted, the consortium of Bujagali became the best among those who had bidded. in other words, is the one that was asking for the lowest return on investment. And it was given the contract to run. Now, in the contract that was signed between the government and the Bujagali was that Bujagali would generate power, and the government committed to take the entire amount of power. And I want to let the public know that if
I don't want to disrupt the flow of your submission.
Yes, please.
But we've been with Umeme, so problems with Umeme and Umeme. So as you submit, don't forget to tell us the day you will leave and the conditions, because with Umeme we've been quarreling because of the amount of money. The Honorable Sanjay Tena has just joined us. We were with him in the last parliament. The last time he came here, if I recall, he was contesting to be NRM vice chairman for Eastern Uganda. But we also had him a number of times during the campaign here. Honorable, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
So I had introduced the topic, and the guests who are here, we are discussing power before we go to the Pope and the splitting of Tororo, where you were an MP. So you will tell us, because the quarrel that is reported in the newspapers.
He has been a driver.
The quarrels in the newspapers were that the Itesot there and the Japadola, they can't live and peacefully in one district. So that's why they are chopping it to allow each group to take a sub-county here and there. But please, Mr. Kananura, so continue.
So thank you very much. So I was saying that the contract was signed with the government, and that contract was to last 30 years. To be specific, it is going to lapse in 2042.
2042.
So 2042 is when we shall hand over the plant, and we shall hand it over when it is generating 96% of the available capacity. That is what we shall generate, what we shall hand over. In other words, we have to maintain that plant in a very running position and efficient position. And at that time, we shall not claim anything. We shall give it to the government at $1. So we are not going to ask for any other amount.
Going to meme us. So
we are not going to ask for any other amount, because that's what our contract provides. So, Honorable, the question that we are asked is what
the waiver?
What's the waiver?
Yeah.
Now, from where I had reached, so when this contract was signed, the government committed to taking the entire amount that is generated. And I would like to inform the public that if the government took the entire amount that is generated, the actual tariff for Bujagali is 5.6 cents, which is highly competitive. It is, and to get 5.6 cents at the time this contract was made, it shows that this was a very efficient contract negotiation.
Let's help people who are listening to understand, because you said if they were taking all the power generated.
Yes.
Just give us the situation as it is.
The situation as it is that because we have many other generators, we are issued with instructions from transmission, Uganda Electricity Transmission Company, who is the bulk purchaser of all the energy that is bought but is generated. Now, UETCL gives instructions to Bujagali to dispatch. At the moment, we are dispatching between 65 to 68% of the installed capacity. But remember the contract that we signed, the government had assured Bujagali that whatever amount you declare, we shall take the entire amount. Okay? Yeah. So because we have been dispatched about 68%, we end up having a higher tariff. If you get the amount of money you are paying us and you divide by the units, then you get a higher tariff. But in other words, if the government had the demand and you call on Bujagali to dispatch the entire 250 megawatts, then the tariff would be 5.6. So the onus is on the government.
At the moment, it is at 9.11.
At the moment, it is about 7.8%. That is what we registered. 7.8 cents. That is what we registered last month. So if the government could take the entire amount, then Bujagali tariff would be highly competitive. Now, the other question that you had asked was about the waiver. Now, let's fast track this discussion. About 2016, the government realized that for the government, for Uganda to be competitive with the rest of the countries in the East African region, they needed to lower the tariff. And then they asked ERA to find out Electricity Regulatory Authority to give us the contributor who is actually giving this tariff, contributing highly in this tariff. And they found out it was Umeme at the distribution tail, and then at generation it was Bujagali and the ESCOM. So the government, at its own initiative, requested for a renegotiation of the terms for Bujagali. And that negotiation was done in 2018. Now, in the negotiation, when the figures were looked at, the lenders of Bujagali asked the government, if we do this, if we are to take on any additional risk, and we extend the tenor of the loan, what is your contribution as government? So the government in that negotiation promised and committed to the lenders that if we are to achieve the 5 cents, for us we shall waive off the taxes for Bujagali, because it's a pass-through. Every tax that Bujagali pays, it goes back to the regulator, to the tariff, and claims it. So for the government to reduce, to achieve the 5 cents, they committed that they will always provide a waiver to Bujagali. It is not on Bujagali's request to have this waiver provided. It is the government that committed for it to achieve the 5 cents. And I have tried to model what exactly that means. If that waiver is not provided, because Electricity Regulatory Authority has, the one that issues us tariffs on a quarterly basis, has modeled this. And they are saying that if the waiver is not provided, then the tariff will increase by 4.7%. And we've not had any tariff increase of that magnitude. So
I will switch to Professor Sejaka. What I pick from you is that first, government is consuming, or Uganda is consuming, just about 65% of the power you are generating.
Yes.
Because of that, the agreement you signed with Uganda was that Uganda will buy all the electricity generated.
Exactly.
So we pay for what we are consuming, but also pay for what we are not consuming. Because in the agreement, we committed to buy all the units that are being generated. Professor Sajak, as I come to you, if you look at the census, just about 20% of Ugandan households, Uganda has 10 million households, only 20% are using electricity for lighting, and the number is a bit lower for those who are using it for cooking. In some areas, of course, we have solar energy, which is now taking about 25%. But on average, you're talking about a country whose consumption, I'm not talking about factories, but the ordinary people, it is just about 20%. And we are cutting all the trees in Uganda because 60% of the households in Uganda are using firewood. So from your knowledge and having worked with many of these organizations in many capacities that I will not have to say today, so where do you think we can begin correcting mistakes we made in that sector for us to be able to save our environment, be able to consume all the powers we are generating? Where do we begin correcting the mistakes, if you can tell us the mistakes and how we can better that sector?
Thank you very much, Honorable, and good morning, listeners, once again. I think, let's first go back in history and look at what happened.
You want to go to 1980?
No, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go to 1986.
We want you on the mic, so each time he disrupts you, you.
Oh, I don't know. You came from Namland and got here, but I can't. I want peace from people from Tororo. Yes. So when you go back in history to the time that we,
I'll ask you, Professor, to use the microphone.
Okay. When we Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. When we did the restructuring of Uganda Electricity Board, we created 3 organizations. So we had UEGCL, which generated, we had UTCL to transmit, and UEDCL
For distribution.
to distribute. For UEDCL, the concession was given to Umeme. Now, when we had UEB, we had the wholesome view of the sector. So you planned to generate energy, you planned to transmit it, and to distribute it at the same time. But now when you have 3 different companies, you have people dealing with the issue of generation, you have people dealing with the issue of transmission, and you have people dealing with distribution separately. So we have ended up with a situation where you have oversupply, but you had not planned for the dispatch, the offtake, the transmission. So the price continues to be high because, as the CFO of Bujagali has said, at the time that the investors come into the country, you guarantee certain facilities. For instance, that we will take all the power that you consume. If we don't take all of it, we will pay for it. And that has been the problem with Bujagali. Now, if you don't have a wholesome 360-degree view of how you invest in the sector, you find that the price gets pushed to the consumer. The tariff keeps on rising because of inefficiencies in the system, because of energy losses and all those other issues. And because our people are poor, they cannot pay this high tariff. So they continue using the biofuels, and we're having this very big problem with the climate. So it is around 2018 that we started seriously talking about bringing down the tariff. That's when you see us negotiating with Bujagali as a government of Uganda to bring down this tariff. But the impact has not been felt. And the issue that then becomes a point of contention is that if you want to save the environment, do you pay the subsidies so that you bring the tariff down so that more people have connections? But even when we have seen subsidies in place, you still find that people cannot pay for energy. We had REA, if you remember, Rural Electrification Agency, and the connections were supposed to be very, very subsidized. Still, the uptake of renewable energy was not as significant as we would have wanted it to be. So I think there has to be a very, very serious rethink of how we provide and pay for energy so that we save the environment. So there's an issue of opportunity cost. So when you start talking about waivers and the taxes which you want to collect at the same time, you have to take into account all the other things or consequences of having a high tariff. And as you have rightly said, one of them is that people cannot afford to pay for the energy. That's why the connections are still few compared to the sub-Saharan Africa average.
Fonda, I'll come to you later on. I'll be going back to the energy experts, the experts in the sector. Part of the reason our public debt is as high as it is, consuming 38% of the total budget, because this financial year, debt servicing is 35 trillion in a budget of 72. Next financial year, it is debt servicing is 27 trillion in a budget of 71. Part of the reason public debt is gone high is because we've been borrowing to develop this sector. In fact, if you read almost all the reports of World Bank or IMF, they emphasize the issue of the energy sector, that for any country to develop, you must have stability there. That's how you attract investment. The question is to you, who is part of the government, part of the ruling party, is that you invited Bujagali, they came, invested, they are generating 250 megawatts, but you have no capacity to consume it, yet you pay for it. So which sort of government are you that bring electricity and you just look at it? You are like a villagers. I was in Roham. They look at the electricity pole, but they can't get the electricity into their houses.
Well, I'm glad Professor Jaka said, let's go back in time, in history. we had not invested in building new energy sources since 1954, when the Owen Falls Dam was built and commissioned. We did not put sufficient resources in maintenance. By 86, or even when Bujagali came, I think we were producing power at 60%. So really, the situation was desperate. If you're in a desperate situation, most of us go to borrow, either in banks or from friends. When you're desperate, you take the offer that is available. And I think in many respects, it is not just in the energy sector at Bujagali, in many respects, because the situation was desperate, was dire, we wanted any rescue, no matter the cost, no matter the social impact. We wanted a rescue. Look at the other sectors when we're doing divestiture. You can't run your hotels. Somebody comes and says, this thing is finished. You remember we sold something at 1 shilling. Direct operation.
$1.
$1.
Yes.
So that's one part. Desperation creates despondence. Despondence then leads you to the kind of days we have had. The second one was, did we have experts that can negotiate competently? So if you are, because you are using civil servants who have, the most they have ever sold was a cow. Now you are negotiating complicated matters. Or chicken, if you come from Tororo, it's unlikely that you would have even sold a cow. Most likely it's just a goat. But you are now the commissioner in charge of negotiation. How much leverage, how much expertise?
But the cows in Tororo are actually big goats.
Big goats. How much expertise do you have when you meet Bujagali, which is a consortium of international experts and lobbyists?
You hire.
Part of even if you were to hire the expert, somebody will pose as an expert and you hire them. Do they have? That's the second leg. Why we are in the situation we are in. Then of course there is a complicity, connivance, which these days we could say corruption. Somebody says this is the situation is very bad, and this is the offer available. But when they have been oiled by the people who are going to buy your property, and I think we have had this in many sectors, not just Bujagali. You remember that Bujagali, Semuju, I was in Parliament as a reporter. And you remember the accusation in the 6th Parliament against the Committee on National Economy, Committee on Finance, where MPs were flown from Uganda. And the president came public about it, that our members of parliament, and remember it led to the transfer of a minister. You remember the $10,000? I don't know.
Yes, I remember.
Yes. You remember the $10,000? A minister was removed because of accusation that he had taken. He went to New York. That's where he got the money from. Now, if here people can be bought by $10,000, at that time $10,000 appeared to be big money. So that's the other one. The fourth area is the infrastructure. And if you connect Bujagali to Umeme, how did we end up with Umeme? The president recently came about it, said by the time the matter has reached him, people had already concluded the deal. The people who were supposed actually to advise him had already concluded a bad deal. So
yeah, but Oscar, you see, Ofono, you remember the 6th Parliament, the Honorable Kazua is buried this week. The president was very angry with them because they stopped him from signing AES Naire Power. And remember, one of the clauses in that agreement, you were in Parliament, was that Uganda was going to guarantee water levels in Lake Victoria. Up to now,
Yes.
Museveni is still quarreling.
Yes. So the president can only make decision basing on the quality of the advice provided by the government officials. I don't think the president is an expert on everything. So he relies on the advice of other people. Now, if that advice is tainted, like in this particular case of Bujagali, in the case of Umeme, in the case of the railway, in the case of many other things, if the advice is tainted, we are likely to end up in the situation we are in. And so for me, I think the issue should be, are we able to now
Negotiate better?
Negotiate better? Are we able to distill that going forward, when the contract, because you can imagine, he has told you the contract is ending in 2042, and they are going to give back the infrastructure without asking for any other payment. The same people who negotiated Bujagali are likely to have been the same people who negotiated Umeme. Then how did they negotiate Bujagali so that it is handed over without being paid again? While if for Umeme, they should be paid.
Well, they are giving us.
Yes.
I should say good morning, listeners. I've been listening to Fonofono. You're starting to speak like a politician even before you are there. don't add issues there. These are different entities. Good morning, Ofonopono, the candidate.
I have always been a politician,
Sanjay.
except I wasn't elected.
Morning, Oscar.
Yes.
Morning, Mr.
Yes. Apologies for coming late. When Semojo was introducing everyone, he forgot to say he's smart in a blue suit. I don't know. Did you send him back to blue? I'm not so sure. Or you never left. Sanjay, good to see you. Michael Tarema, excellent. Prof. Sejaka. And of course, Honorable Namuga, you're most welcome to
Thank you.
Yes. Conclude.
Yeah, no.
Already you put me in trouble with those 10,000 allegations.
Yeah, you see, I am trying to connect that. Let us not. Yes, while Bujagali has come, but I want to say it is not a one-off.
Okay.
It has been a strand in public sector management that, because of the things I have said and the others have said, we end up with bad deals. Now the question is, after 20 years of Bujagali, after 15 years of Bujagali, are we able to retrace our footsteps so that the coming deals, if they are going to hand over, we have just received back. You can see Trump, even America, which everybody praises. You can see the president announces tariffs, and 2 days later he cuts back. And you ask, on what basis did he announce this, make this tariff? So these vested interests, for example, can spoil an otherwise a good venture. And so for me, the main issue should be, are we able to correct the mistakes? And I think there's a sense in which I see in the cabinet, in parliament, in our experts like the Sejakas, I think we are now saying, wait a minute, can we do things better? And I think we are in the right direction. We got saved, we got salvaged, now we are somewhere. And even when you say, when we signed and said we are taking all the power, at that time, I think there was the view that when you say Uganda is open, investors will flood in. We did not realize that the world is for competition. While we are opening, Kenya is also opening. And the investors we are expecting to come here will go to Kenya, will go to Rwanda, will go to other places. And so the consumption remains stagnated. And so if you have made that commitment, a good government, a good dealer, you should live to your commitment. And so for me, I find no big problem, government paying them for the power we said we would take, and yet we are not taking. At that time, remember, we didn't have solar.
Thank you.
Today, we are telling people, please, buy more solar, have your own biogas, buy liquefied gas, and so they are not going to use electricity of Bujagali for cooking. Yes, but we made it. That
thank you, Sanjay.
All those things.
Thanks for having me here. Good morning to all the listeners out there and to the gang today. Very interesting topic, very interesting insights given by the team from Bujagali. Initially, while I was in Parliament, we were told that Bujagali power was among the most expensive in the world. And that led to the renegotiation he's talking about in 2018. The way it has been presented today is not a way that I would have presented if I was the person presenting the issue. And I want to agree with OO on some insights that he has given and deviate a bit. I think we did have a good team. But like he said, we were desperate. If you remember, before the coming of Bujagali, Uganda developed exponentially, industrially, population-wise, and our growth was phenomenal. And the power sector could not cope. Like he said, we stand on a global market, on the African continent where other countries were also opening doors to investors. Now, to get these huge investments like roofing, Stembo steel, into the country that are extremely high power intensity projects, we needed the power, but we didn't even have power. Most of, including Capital FM, was running 24/7 on generator. And so the Bujagali was a measure that we took as a government under desperate circumstances. I am glad that while we were in Parliament,
the desperate circumstances have been stopped. Even the agreements of today are the same.
Yes. So if you check the global tariffs today, we are within the range of the global tariff. Now come the point that Honorable Semuju and OO were laboring to explain is the excess capacity. In any project, in any power project that you negotiate, the investor who is putting his money, even in a business, would want all his stock to be sold. But power is not something like you put food on a plate and say, please finish the food on your plate. It's not possible. The power consumption, like Doctor has explained, Prof has explained, is that you need to look at the holistic picture. Now, while we were hell-bent and dedicated to increasing our power generation, which me and Honorable Semuju supported in the consequent parliaments, we have completed, being a third world country and with a limited basket, we had to do things in phases. Today, I'm reliably told that now we are building the grid to evacuate this power, which then brings us to the third question that Prof raised. Are we prepared to then consume the power last mile, what they call last mile, and that's connecting into the households for cooking and etc. So are we now building the distribution grid, because the grid we are using is 55 years old and has its own issues and challenges. As a government, we have now stopped building new dams because we already have built almost 2,000 megawatts capacity. There is idle capacity. It was recognized then and understood, but a dam is something you cannot start building tomorrow when you need the power the day after. A dam takes 5 years, 7 years to build and complete. So you must plan in advance, and that's why we have the excess capacity. The question today on the table is that, do we have the evacuation? Are we prepared to take the power the last mile? And I think those are questions that these experts need to advise us. Secondly, Oscar, is when you look at the government fighting to reduce the tariff at the level of household level, the consumer level, the consumer tariffs. That we as Parliament, Honorable Semuju would, bear me witness. as parliament, as leaders, including the president, has on several occasions come out and said that what Umeme was doing, because the contract was given to them. Now, that's where I differ with OO. We had to pay Umeme because we terminated their contract earlier than the expiry date. In this case,
the contract was 20 years.
Yes.
It actually came to an end.
Yeah. So, but they had that clause that they had actually applied for a renewal.
So
And it was within the agreement that they were hoping to have it renewed. Now, when we terminated them,
It came to an end.
yeah, when we refused to renew, thank you, when we refused to renew the contract,
It refused.
it
came to an
To an end, and we did not.
Yes.
okay,
So
okay,
it's
okay.
Better retract.
I retract. But in the circumstances,
Sanjay, let's stick with Bujagali.
yes, in the circumstances, the agreement with Bujagali is build, operate, and transfer. So the circumstances, the structure of the agreements were two different agreements. And I would not want to blame the technocrats then vis-a-vis today, but I would want to blame the circumstances we were in rather than the people.
Consequently, you've agreed with OO. So, Honorable Namuga, you're on. Were you part of the naysayers, or you understand why Bujagali should have a waiver?
I first of all should inform the country that when it comes to issues of power, I had OO say that we did not have a good negotiation team. I entirely agree with him. My colleague has been explaining about, distribution. We generated more than what we anticipated to evacuate. But I mean, as you do plan for the whole process, because at the end of the day, our interest was to have power to the country. So if there are challenges of distribution, and you have failed to evacuate, that means those that did negotiate this contract ought to have known of the importance of investing this money into Bujagali, and how you would have Bujagali finally impact on the country. I can give an example. For me, the time I joined Parliament, we had the issue of dimmed energy across board, a serious investment. By then, we had areas of close to it was 25 billion. It started with 25 dimmed energy, and everyone was asking, what is dimmed energy? And we generate more than what we can consume, and it is a cost to a country. And to date, I don't know whether my finance minister did state it, that we still have areas under dimmed energy. Is it now close to something like 88 billion? So we continue to generate, but the whole system is uncoordinated. So I should say we should put in more effort at the time of negotiation. It is a fact that at the time of negotiation, some of our colleagues look at personal benefit than the entire benefit to the country. As the Deputy Chair, Park Central, we've faced this on several contracts and projects. The negotiation in this country is still a challenge. And he talked about the capacity of those that negotiate. And he was like, the president cannot have technically cannot have the technical expertise in every area. That is why he's given the mandate to always solicit for services from whoever has the expertise to negotiate for these specific contracts. So I think as a country, we need to pay more effort when it comes to negotiation of different contracts. Let us use experts too. Let us evaluate performance of these contracts as we go on stage by stage. But when we sign contracts, MOUs with companies, we relax and wait for end of some of these contracts. So we need to put emphasis in evaluation at a reasonable period, mid-term review of some of the performance of these contracts. And there is no contract that is cast in stone. We can always amend where necessary, because it must be at a benefit of the contractor and as a country. So we cannot, as a country, spend at the expense of the people that pay taxes. So it has been costly. Bujagali, whoever crafted that contract knows that it is a bad deal for Uganda. It has not been a good deal at any time.
I don't know if that is correct.
That's not.
I think when we negotiated Bujagali, we agreed certain parameters that Bujagali Energy must meet certain KPIs, performance indicators, and the government must also do certain things. The main issue on the part of government was the offtake of the generated power. So if then we do not dispatch that power, we still find ourselves in a bind that we must pay for the power. Honorable, that's why you are saying that we have the arrears, isn't it?
Yes, we have.
So I think the whole issue is about getting into a contract and then keeping our part of the contract. Before you came, the CFO was informing us that if all the power generated by Bujagali was evacuated, the tariff would go down to 5.6 cents. Okay? But right now, only about 68% of that power is being. So we are scoring an on goal. But that having been said, I really want to come back to a question that OO has asked, and maybe we should be asking you, because you are the people in power. Do you now?
In power.
No, OO is in power.
Well, you people can have that debate, but for me, I know you are the man for whom we have to get off the road so that you pass. But the point is, have we now built the capacity to negotiate? And in my own view, we have the capacity to negotiate. However, whenever these big deals come up, you find that other variables do come in, like what you call the rent seeking or corruption. You find that other interests do come in, and the whole machinery of government, which is supposed to manage these issues, is sidelined. So you find that we now have a paro government in State House for everything. So what that is a question you need to answer for us. Do we have the capacity to do the right things today?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mike,
if the capacity utilized, because you see Oscar Sanye here.
Now you want to
No, I surrendered peacefully. You see, the NRM, all of them have been switched to think like M7, that you're going to blame history for every problem. We have Pinette here. She walks into the country and she's asked to construct a super referral hospital in 48 months. They came to Parliament and told us, you guys, this agreement, if you don't approve it, we are going to pay penalties. We have so far paid Pinette 723 billion.
That was because they'd already signed it off.
That's what they usually do. So the experts, that's the point, question that Ufono was being asked to answer. Once you have parallel system, the government people are just signing. I will tell you off air. Late Nyombi was called into State House to sign an agreement. He had not read. And he came and signed. Because NRM people are like robots.
No, but the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Finance,
Michael, hold on,
the Minister of Finance has admitted on the floor of Parliament that he signed an agreement without having read it.
That was the lady.
No, the gentleman.
So the problem, Oscar, the point of it,
yes. I want us to go back to Bujagali.
Yes.
You are one of the heads of finance committees.
No, I am Shadow Minister for Finance.
Yes.
He's a shadow.
But were you opposed to the waivers? Because you are moderating when I came in and you could not
so
give your own opinion.
Every year now, when we are processing tax bills, this year we have 7 of them. There is a provision in the proposed law to continue with the waiver. Because of too much noise that was being made in Parliament, they have done it annually. So you say, no, okay, it is stopping here. And MPs, I don't think we think beyond an hour. And so
your problem.
each time the proposal comes, it looks new. And then the MPs are told, this year, the tariff, the what. So I am opposed. It is in the agreement that government renegotiated 2018. So our hands are almost tied, as they are in all the NRM agreements, because they first conclude the agreements and come to you at the end that this is the agreement we have with Bujagali. Either we go and negotiate, remove the waiver, and you pay the higher tariff, or if you want to maintain the tariffs at a certain level, affordable. So I am opposed to all these handouts to so-called investors. I mean, we are the only country where an investor, I'm not talking about Aga Khan, I'm talking about many others. You just walk into Uganda, you are given a free land. But even the money to invest, Uganda will give you So you come here, we guaranteed. No, eventually
that's not true.
No, we guaranteed. But there was time the president was proposing that we use the money we are saving. Yes. I remember we were in parliament with him.
So final, I'm coming to.
So I am not sure that all the money was. We had the money here we are saving as a country, and the president said we need to give it to Bujagali.
In the State House.
Honorable Semuje, first conclude. So if you had Trump tendencies and you are in power, what would you do with Bujagali today?
Where we are now, because you see, every decision you make for or against an investor is going to become a global problem. People, I remember one time I met Stambik when they were coming here. They invite all sorts of people. I was in the media. And then I went to meet them at Serena. They wanted to collect as much information about Uganda. So we will need now to reverse this when Museveni and his machinery has gone. You cannot correct the current agreement. It's very difficult because they are going to affect the
investment,
environment in the country.
You recognize it,
of course,
but also you recognize that we only have 20%. As I was listening to your statistics coming in,
this is not my statistics. It is you, boss.
Right.
20% of the country are the ones using electricity for lighting, not even cooking, and then 23, I think, if I am correct, use solar. So, but the cooking is less than 10%. So that's why I was quarreling with Ofono Opondo. We've borrowed the money, we have to pay money. The energy, I mean, the power is available. We are not utilizing it, but we pay in every budget. We have money to pay.
Okay. So, just 1 minute.
The doctor had said things end up in the State House.
No, he said
they begin from there and end there.
No, where we are, and
no,
I
he
think
said there's parallel in the State House.
Yeah,
worldwide, and even in our constitution. That's why the constitution gives the president the title Fountain of Honor. When you are in a desperate situation, like I said, there are investors who will say, I cannot invest because of the following insecurities, unless the president himself gives me guarantee. I have no problem.
Sejaka is looking at you as you explain.
Yes,
I wish I could take his photograph.
Yes, unless the president gives me guarantee. Now, I have no problem the president attending to these people and giving them guarantees, but it should be us who service the president. What is the quality of the briefs we give about each investor? We have seen Trump now. He's saying, I am here. All countries should come and negotiate with me directly.
And now he's insulting his Bank of Uganda.
Yeah, so.
But let me conclude. Michael Tarema Kananura, conclusion on this one. If Semuju had Trump power, he would close you down. And he's against the waiver. Start there.
Well, thank you very much, Oscar. I wanted you, if you could allow me.
I have allowed, even before you asked.
Honorable says that this was Honorable Namuga says this was a bad deal. And I really want to disagree with you. You see, we need to contextualize, and I think that's what Ofono Opondo was saying. At the time Bujagali came in, let's really look at the statistics. We were spending $9.5 million per month in subsidy. And if you are the one running the country, you could not pause to say, let us first build the dam, and we channel this amount into building the dam as the country is held. You can't make that decision. So we needed.
When you wanted to buy jets,
yes,
the president went and bought them and came to Parliament for retrospective approval. Well, you can. I want you to restrict yourself to Bujagali, but the country is run different and it's not your business.
So my point is that
I'm not sure what point Semuju has made.
You are saying that, you see, we went into this because of the problems. Problems have been solved differently. When we wanted to buy jets, we bought them using a lot of money. We could have used the same money to build a dam instead of bringing Aga Khan.
I think they were all priorities.
Ofono Opondo and you have switched off both your microphones. Let the man speak.
So
go on.
The point.
Go on, Mike.
The point I'm making is that at the time, the government needed to make a decision. And between 2006 and 2011, the government of Uganda, through subsidies alone, spent $900 million. And at the time, most of us, I think, were all around, were running the Agreco, the thermal plant, the thermal generators, and they were expensive. So Bujagali comes in at that time when we were really struggling with power. And what we tend to forget is that they were getting into uncharted waters. You are getting into a climate where you've not had any private investor put in money for such a long period of time. So they come in, and indeed, after getting in, we have seen the number of IPPs, independent power producers, increase from 1 Bujagali up to about 40, and that is only in the electricity sector. And in the other sectors, we are starting to see now the channeling of private players into those sectors. So we really need to appreciate that this was not a bad deal. And I have explained, if the entire generation, the entire capacity. No. I'm speaking as a country. You see, if we are, let's contextualize this, Honorable Semuju. If in 2004, okay, you can negotiate a 5.6 cent tariff, and then in 2018 you are negotiating a 5 cent tariff with another generator, surely would you want to blame the person who generated about 10 years earlier and generated 5.6? Yeah, so
you on your microphone is on.
So my thinking is that, and I want to believe that this was not a bad deal. And then I want to also come to experts. Yes, at the time, actually, it is on record that the government hired private experts to discuss this agreement and even draft it. This agreement, the lawyers who were leading in this agreement between Bujagali and the government were the government lawyers. And we have followed each clause by clause, including a 90. Gentlemen, we are just discussing, I know there are other plans that have come up, but committing to have availability of 96%, you are only having a 4% margin of error. And by the time we hand over the plant, we must be generating, we must be available, as in all turbines are firing up the entire year.
Is it there now?
96. At the moment, we are operating at 99.8%. That is what we generated last year. Availability. If you want us to...
And the dispatch?
The dispatch now is where the challenge is. It's at 68. And again...
What does dispatch mean?
What is being allowed to be put on the grid.
Okay.
So if we are not allowed to be put on the grid, then we let the water, we spill the water, and then the water flows and continues. But then if they allow us, we can even fire up to 250 megawatts. And when we do that the entire year, then the tariff goes down to 5.6%. Now we cannot, if I have committed to generate up to 250 megawatts, and my machines can do that, then it would be unfair to again say, even when your machines can do it, I'm not going to pay for this energy.
And yet
so the government committed.
Okay, which is what they do, but
it's already bought.
Let me, Professor Sejaka, in conclusion, you know, I've hosted Semuju here at my home severally, and when I buy them chicken, they leave chicken on the plate. This is what you're trying to tell them.
Yes.
The chicken is already bought. I cannot force him to eat the whole thing.
But you don't give me the whole chicken.
No, even the pieces I give you don't finish. And yet I bought maybe 2 whole chicken. Can you use simple analogies like that in your
Yes,
conclusion?
I can use very simple analogies.
We are now in Mwalimu territory.
Thank you very much. Since we're in Mwalimu territory, I'll break it down and make it very simple. When Bujagali came, we agreed we will take all the energy they produce. We also agreed that if we don't take it, we will pay for it. So those are the terms on which they made the investment.
2042 we can change the whatever.
Pardon?
In 2042 we can change how we operate.
Yeah, we can change it. I think along the way, you see, Ugandans forget, along the way, the president had even said, why don't we buy them out and they go away?
Yeah.
So that convention was also there. But let's stick to the tariff. So if you don't take the power, you still pay for it. That is the chicken you have left.
Yeah.
So when Semju and Ofonopondo come to your home and you give them
eats
chicken,
all of it, he doesn't need.
Okay. When Semju doesn't finish it, Ofonopondo is not a planned child.
You can pass it over to me.
So when Semju doesn't pay for the chicken, eat the chicken, still make him pay for it. But the point now is Uganda has to pay for that power.
Okay.
And when we pay for that, let me make, there's a point that is very important for us.
In a minute.
Now, in an attempt to try and lower the tariff, we did negotiate with Bujagali to waive taxes. And I think that was one of the things we are not talking about very clearly. So the issue of waiving taxes on Bujagali is in the interest of lowering the tariff. Okay? But otherwise, the tax, if Bujagali has to pay that tax, it becomes a pass-through cost. So the end consumer will still have to do what?
To pay.
To pay it. So that is you see what the same Jews. Yes, but you are getting there are social benefits for us as a country in terms of having a lower tariff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we are saying the power should be
Thank you, Professor
more
Sejaka.
affordable.
Final word, Michael Tarema Kananura, as I dispatch you from a studio to use your own language.
Thank you very much, Oscar and the gangsters. The final word is that, one, I would like to clarify this notion that has been on the very many platforms that Bujagali 1 is the most expensive. It is not. The contract that was signed between the government and Bujagali is in fact 5.6 cents if the government does its part of the bargain. Dispatch Bujagali 250 megawatts, dispatch the entire amount, or allow it onto the grid, the tariff will go down to 5.6 cents. That's one. Number two, I would also like to say we have numerous commissions and audits by the government of Uganda through Auditor General, and all have pointed to the same thing, that the waiver on Bujagali is a pass-through cost. And it is the government of Uganda that committed that for the consumers to pay at 5 cents, then they would need to provide the waiver on corporate taxes to Bujagali, and that was the commitment they gave to the lenders. And if that is not provided, the challenge will be that me and you, who are the consumers of electricity, will have to again add on additional cents or additional Uganda shillings to cater for the taxes. So the government made a commitment that is on our side. We shall give you a waiver so as to achieve the 5 cents, because you can't have your cake and eat it. And
thank you. Final sentence.
Final sentence is to say thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity and time to come and clarify this. And I want to wish everyone a nice weekend. And
so thank you very much, CFO Michael Tarema Kananura of Bujagali. Thank you very much, Professor, for giving Sam Sejaka for the academic view as well.
When he said,
Oscar, I am not giving an academic view. I'm a practitioner and I am talking. You see, for Ugandans, thank you. Can you correct that?
Expertise.
Thank you.
An economic view.
You know, when Professor said the next time would you pay for the chicken he hasn't eaten, we were hosted at Rugeo Farm of Kapshenga. This was the first time I saw it. They invite us, we go there. And for lunch, we had to pay.
Yes.
He said, no free lunch here. We thought we had the farm.
And you made sure you ate all the food.
So thank you very much. Let's stop for a quick break. And after the break, we will go to the Pope. And after Pope, we have Tororo. I even have Joseph Otieno coming in. So I'll have 3 men from Tororo and we'll ask them whether, bunch them together, and we talk about their question. Let's stop for a break. Welcome back from the break. This is the Capital Gang. I've just rearranged the studio, so all three men from Tororo are kind of seated in the same area. Two are NRM, one is Forever
Congress.
UPC, Congress. So most welcome to Gang, Joseph Otieno.
Good to be here. I'm delighted that you asked me to come at 11 o'clock. I came early, but I came and found a fantastic conversation taking place on energy in Uganda. I'm tired of getting my fish getting spoiled in the fridge because of absence of efficient power. Here near Chira, moreover.
This is the problem. I'll tell you just buy and cook.
These guys are used to keeping things in the fridge in the UK.
In Uganda, fresh fish is there every day. So you don't need to keep fresh fish in the fridge.
You know there's no fresh fish in Malanda as we talk now.
No.
Okay, maybe in the new district.
No.
But even me who lives by the lake, I put in the freezer.
You see?
I'm saying
Because all of you are paying the bad.
Yeah, you lived in the UK. You lived in the UK.
Who can eat?
So, Semuju, well done, Honorable Semuju, well done on introducing the gang. You did very well as a protagonist, trying to be a moderator.
Thank you.
And I was listening in as I was coming. I don't know, where is he moderating? Where is he giving information? Where is he attacking? So, I dare say you.
I was trying to restrain myself.
He's a journalist. So good.
So, Honorable Namuka, you kickstart us on the funeral of the Pope Francis. I was listening in since yesterday. There's been international coverage trending, as Semuju said. And, they're being precise, the funeral will take 90 minutes. As a teacher of English, I also appreciated the word funeral and burial. So the funeral will take 90 minutes, and then he has chosen to be buried in a poorer church area. He doesn't want all this mega stuff. Were you touched by the Pope?
Definitely, because I'm a Catholic. I take this moment to extend my condolences to the entire world, and in specific Uganda here, for what we are, the mourning moment that we are going through. And I thank some of our colleagues who have represented us in Vatican. Hope all will go well, but it's a sad moment and a mourning moment in our country. However, as you don't understand what I'm speaking to.
No, but don't worry about him. You continue.
I know. So
don't worry about him. Continue.
Yes. It's unfortunate on your part, but I should say for the Catholic Church and the entire world, I thank those that have joined us, especially the leaders in this country. Everyone was, thank you. Everyone was thinking about the good of the Pope, what he has done. I remember I visited Uganda, and every one of us was happy. He visited most of the East African countries, but the most moment that everyone remembers is the Sudan visit, where he really made statements about the insecurity in that place, and he had to really make remarkable moments in South Sudan. In Sudan. We wish them well, but he has died when the same conflicts are still happening and taking place. But as Christians, we remember him of one thing: humanity and humility in what he has been doing as a pope. And I remember one statement that he made, that I'm very attentive about the needs of the people. And he has been so passionate about human rights. As of now, we speak about 81,000 prisoners versus the 21,000 in prison capacity. We are over, how should I say? We are congested by 377%. We still have political prisoners, those that have been in prison for the last 4 how many years without being presented to the courts of law. So these are very challenging moments when some of such leaders have come out to speak about issues of humanity and the rule of law in our countries as Africa. So the president of this country came up to tweet. He made a tweet about what the good about the Pope. But I mean, we've not lived lived up to, practically putting in place, practically practicing what the Pope was speaking to in regard to human rights. So I should say we should stop lamenting and praising, such leaders than implementing what they have advised us about. Otherwise, as leaders in the opposition, we had some moments in Luzira where we met the Dr. Chiza Besigye and Dr. Obed and other political prisoners, many of them. But I liked the courage of Dr. Besigye. He told us, every time you speak about the political prisoners, that voice means a lot to us as a country. I had to recall what the Pope has been speaking about on issues of human rights. So I'll say the best that Mr. Museveni can give this country during the time when we are mourning the Pope is to think about his sons, the Bazukulu, as he normal addresses us, the Bazukulu in prisons, who has not aligned before courts of law. And it's not a crime to have multi-party dispensation in this country. So I cannot say that, we have learned a lot from this religious leader, but I should say if we've learned, we've forgotten all that we've learned from him. So the gift that Mr. Museveni can give to this country is to ensure that our colleagues in prisons are treated within the law and brought before courts of law for justice and fairness.
Thank you, Honorable Goreth Namoga. You can pack a lot of information in a small response. Thank you, and Ofonopondo was listening intently. But Honorable Semuju, did you know that the Pope has been calling Palestine every day?
No, I didn't know that, but
been calling them every day and urging Israel to stop bombing.
Makes me hate the West. They have different standards for Ukraine and different standards for Palestine. So the Pope, his last message was about Palestine, calling for a ceasefire. But of course that call was landing on deaf ears. They are not hearing. But I have also read and followed his modesty. I visited Tehran when I was working at Monitor. Khomeini, who read them in Revolution 79, all he left was a container and a winter coat. It is a monument. People go there to see those two things. That's all he left. The trouble many of us face here is that while Semuju tells people of Chile have gone to fight for you, they will see you growing and the people you are fighting for are not. Museveni came here, he said he will buy his furniture from Kawempe, he will be using plastic plates. When the Chinese finished constructing the new state house, his wife said the kitchen is not okay, I want to import one from Waiver. So it is a challenge on all of us that the Pope, with almost everything available, he chose to live that sort of life. I remember his story when he was going to Abu Dhabi. Arabs have money and they spend it. He said, please, those vehicles I don't want. I want a ordinary one. The ordinary people are using, and they are struggling to find one. Even the one in Uganda he saw, they said they are going to preserve. So he was preaching to all of us who are in leadership to be modest, not to think. I am finishing my response to the budget, Oscar, but let me tell you, Uganda as a government employs 500,000 people. They are 1% of the total population. We pay ourselves wages of 8.3 trillion, and then the attendant costs of vehicle and so on and so forth. So my last calculation, and I'm still continuing, 1% of the population is consuming 25% of the budget, 16 trillion in total. And then they fuel their vehicles to go and inspect on the poor people. They have thrown 1 million under PDM. So the level of unfairness in our system. So those of you who are in charge of processes, you serve yourself. That used to happen in the villages where people serve themselves too much and then they throw something small. So I think the Pope, there's something to learn from him, and I hope we can learn, all of us who are in leadership.
Sanjay, on the Pope?
Yeah, of course, like Honorable Namga said,
let's just lift up the microphone.
It's an extremely sad moment. This was a Pope that was a liberal, open-minded. You see, the Catholic Church is closed, and when, like she said, she missed the point in South Sudan when he decided to kneel down and wash the feet of those conflicting leaders. That was an epitome of, humility. That really touched my heart as not only a religious leader, but a man, with compassion, with understanding. At the end of the day, when two parties conflict for power, for, money, and materialistic beings, we forget that we are going to live, and we'll live with nothing. And like she said, it's something that we must learn. We must emulate. We hope that we can emulate that. Today we have all this power, we have the money, we have everything, but we will leave. There were people here before us, and there are going to be people after. And I think that was an extremely touching moment, telling people, these very powerful generals, that you are fighting now, you are capturing power, but the people who are actually suffering are those small kids and women that cannot even afford a meal a day. So my salutations to the Papa, and we can only offer prayers at this juncture. We pray with the entire Catholic Church, like she has said, and the Christian fraternity, and we hope that we all pick a leaf from his life. Honorable Semuju talked about the simple living, the cups, the chairs, and etc. And it's a lesson for life, and that's all I can say. We pray that may the departed soul rest in eternal peace.
Joseph?
Oscar, as you know, I'm a Catholic, and Ofonopondo is not, so I'm sure he's once in a while is possibly envious. But the Catholic Church is the most influential church globally. The Pope usually is the most influential religious leader on earth. St. Peter's Basilica is the largest, rather possibly ambitious church, which then brings the contradiction of the church as a symbol of modesty. Part of my training, why I continue to be mainstream thorough UPC, is because of the foundations of faith as a youngster in Nagongera, St. Wilbrod's. So
the trouble you have,
one of the biggest things
that you may continue being UPC when UPC is no longer there.
That is the dream of Mr. Museveni, but I can tell you we shall have the last laugh. But look,
Joseph, you shouldn't speak much, because as you may not find FDC there either.
Thank you, sir.
But we have closed it, so me, I'm not like
Oscar, you're such a gentleman. I'm delighted to be here. Yeah, so in terms of upbringing, normally, Oscar, whenever I go around the world, and particularly for people who know that I'm a Ochieno of Nagongera, one of the critical foundations are normally...
in which district?
I know. No, some people actually wished I was from there simply because, but no, actually it's part of me as an African. But most importantly is this, that the critical foundation for my values, I really pick it straight from the family where everybody here would say generally. But number two is really in terms of my faith and foundations and growing up at Nagongera Boys Primary School. Faith brought. It actually works. So the influences of our religiosity are generally very, very important. In terms of the Catholic faith, in terms of bringing up people in the early stages, I net link into that. Now, when the Pope Paul visited Uganda first time in 1969, it was a big thing. Of course, some people here were not yet born. But that you stressed that Uganda was privileged to have hosted the first Pope on the continent. And that fast forward, you see the manner in which Pope Paul
was UPC.
carries, of course it was. UPC had to do it in 1969, and they had to come simply because of the simply no. The same year the same year when an attempt on Dr. Botte's life was made by terrible guys from DP. But look, this is not the spirit of Pope Francis and Oscar. You know, these two are journalists. They're just trying to distract me because they're envious. You know, look, if you see the foundation of the church and faith, generally in terms of religious communities, including Islam and others, really where religious leaders lead. And if you see from where the likes of Pope Paul and others, the manner in which they carry themselves, then you come into this more contemporary Pope that we're mourning. He came in as almost like a mini radical. In fact, at some stage, people didn't know which way he was going to go because of his boldness of addressing the core issues. The guy dies like somebody would say is now like the mean average parish priest of the world because he was ordinarily simple. And when I was growing up at the time, as I was being brought up as a decent, quiet, little decent boy, it was almost an excess privilege to shake the hands of a priest. So the way things have changed, I think this Pope has helped move the church forward. So it's not surprising that as he dies, the big fans are globally across communities, and the majority of the people are actually young people. In any case, people who are basically driven by spirituality, people who want to hold their hands like typical Catholics, as we are accused of being mini modest like this. You see spirituality in the guy, but you see practical spirituality in terms of how he was conducting himself. And so when you address the question of South Sudan and others, you should talk about South Sudan and everywhere else because he was very consistent with this
and Congo. Some people have commented on the way he died because he did give a kind of a wave on Easter, and then the next day he went very quietly. And we all thought he had recovered from the major illnesses he was carrying.
But I think most importantly, in a way, systematically from the time he came in, and for me as a global follower on issues, regardless of Catholicism, he was very consistent, whether it was Arab-Israeli issue, whether there's anything that was happening, conflicts in South America, wherever conflicts emerged, he addressed them. The popes, until very recently, almost like a British queen and king, that they talk diplomacy. This one came and spoke diplomacy, but facts, and put it on the table. So I think it's possibly shame on the world. But the quickest thing is that, as I understand, there are not many African leaders who are going to Rome today, and I wonder where Mr. Museveni is with our special jet. Why is not in Rome? But but you know what I'm saying. Religious leaders. Some of the observers, Ibrahim and Ofono. Globally, people are saying that Africa is sending the least representatives in terms of national leaders. People are forgetting that actually at that function is where African leaders need to be able to up their game. Is it because that they're not giving it because... Is it because they think that it's going to be inconsistent with their conduct? But anyway, rest Pope Francis, and I hope that whoever comes in to take over is able to build on that foundation so that they're able to convey messages not only for Catholics, but global spirituality in a very difficult world in which we now have exploits of 1%.
As Joseph says, you are
why don't we switch topics? So you want to speak about serious matters?
Yes, the Pope has been a global person.
We are mourning. Your phone is going to spoil our morning.
First, the Pope's death on Easter Monday, in my view, cheated John Kazora of deserved publicity in death. I want to start from there.
May
John was among the people who recruited me in '86. I worked under him.
I didn't know that.
Yes, I worked under him as SDA.
When you were insulting them, I didn't know you had recruited.
No, we disagree. When we did, I worked under him. His office was in Wandege there. That was the SDA. May his soul rest in peace. I lived in Rome.
Did they know you were living there?
For 6 months on the Tiber River across the Vatican.
Wow.
Yes, 6 months. I was doing a course there, journalism in emerging democracies, 1994.
Who wasted his money?
And they told us...
Let me switch off some
saying Rome by the night. You go into the streets of Vatican, that's where you find prostitutes lining up.
Oh.
Yes, the Vatican and the Catholic Church cannot be, they have pretended for long, cannot be the symbol of modesty. No. They live in in opulence. And then they teach the faithful that be modest. the Catholic Church live in opulence. The Vatican is the epitome of that opulence. The Pope is the one presiding over. I think the Catholic Church rose in times of backwardness. People didn't know. That's why the Pope. That's why the Pope, the Cardinal, the bishops, the fathers, the priests are almost demigods to the Catholic believers. Today, in the world of science and exposure, I don't think the aura that the popes previously enjoyed is any longer. That's why the world is able to see through and ignore what the Pope is saying, Pope Francis. In Italy is the one that sinks boats, chases away immigrants. Lampedusa, the island of Lampedusa. They see people sinking in the boats there. They don't go for rescue. They wait for them until they drown, and then they go and collect dead bodies. That's we did near where the I'm saying the proximity of the Vatican to Lampedusa, and those things happen. So it can't be that the Pope is calling Palestine, Gaza every day, a church of Christians in Gaza every day, and is ignored. So I don't think the Pope is any longer as influential in the world. And so...
A good thing you've said, I don't think.
Yeah, of course, that's my opinion, that's my assessment.
Yeah.
So there's no reason. The Pope is like any other political leader in the world. And we are seeing this with America. Previously, everybody held an American president in awe. I don't think any longer that Trump is respected around the world when he's exhibiting ignorance, grand ignorance about world issues, even his own domestic issues. So the Pope, in my view, yes, he has died. He's like any other person. May he rest. But yeah.
Yes, I was warning you. You see, no matters of religion and monarchy.
You know,
you see, the Changquans graduates who are moreover trained in China, they have the same view.
Fono is entitled to an opinion.
Yeah. And my views are actually accurate. Even the kings of the world.
I don't know.
Even the ones
I thought he had ended.
Even the ones over here. I don't think they have the
Oscar,
same reverence.
I thought Fono had ended.
They are being revered
last week
as previously.
Last week, I had Agatha on the show, and you know, when all the gangsters who are campaigning, I'll give a microphone every week. So when he comes, and then when it gave, the topic was Ofonopono is standing for a parliamentary position. Mm-hmm. So Agatha gave an opinion that there's nothing to celebrate about it, and that there's nothing at all. So,
no, but you see,
that was her opinion.
Yeah, that's okay. But you see,
will be a good addition to Parliament.
Yeah, thank you.
I also agree.
Because if you ask him to choose between the NRM MPs who are including from the Prime Minister to the Vice President,
now you're spoiling it.
I will have Ofonopono 100 times.
Oscar,
yes.
I don't think I need validation from the likes of Agatha and others, or even you. I stand for what?
I'm not your voter, so I don't need you. No. But I'm a promoter.
You wish me,
yes.
You're a promoter.
Yeah.
Last night,
and every Saturday.
Last night you promised me actually some dollar, so for this campaign.
Honorable Namuga, you conclude with 2 sentences on the Pope so that we wash away Ofonopono's comments.
The only conclusion I'm going to make is about the way the Pope changed the burial for the popes, the burial. Can that be a message to us African poor countries? And for me, that would be a very big message to Mr. Museveni and his team. And Parliament, the whole country, as much as the reason as to why I'm talking about Mr. Museveni is because he's held accountable on the way you spend resources. He's the chief of everything. So can we borrow a relief from what the Pope did, from these so many vehicles, yes, there's so many vehicles that the president has, the luxurious life. You know, you begin with how government spends, because once government is luxurious, it has an impact to the way the country is run. So that will communicate big to the Kwanjulas that you are talking about within the community. But as long as there is a lot of luxury in the way we spend public resources, I'm telling you, we are becoming a problem to this country. So how I wish as leaders we can copy and riff on that, and it can be a good message to our people and the future of our children.
We're stopping for a breakfast, Joseph. You know, when I asked Honorable Namuga to conclude, I was wondering where we were going. Joseph, you wanted to make a quick comment before we go to Tororo.
Really, we
and as you make a
we have
comment,
to. Yes.
Joseph, I have Nora Waraga. Sometimes we've invited her here.
Yes.
She says Pope Francis' succession came about because of mega scandals surrounding his predecessor. Will the legacy of Pope Francis sustain, or will his successor revert back closer to the past?
It's unlikely.
The Vatican leaks scandals, on my mind, the jury's out.
I think really my hope, and Nora raises an important question. I really hope that whoever comes in to replace Pope Francis builds on from the foundations that he actually made, because it's extremely important as a radical way of actually addressing some of the things for which I think some of his predecessors and other religious leaders, bishops down across the world, were possibly in many cases living in denial. But actually, if they didn't, then we would see this church going towards another stream in terms of the directions where the church, particularly in Europe and North America, is going. But I just wanted to say that, away from the political representations and examples and pushing the agenda for it, that actually the burden of responsibility clearly now lies with the cardinals around the world, archbishops around the world, bishops around the world, priests around the world. Thankfully, I have fantastic parish priests around Nagongara and others. But that this guy should go ahead and emulate the livelihood of the Pope. So if the guy at the Basilica, St. Peter's in Rome, could lead the life of Pope Francis, then what is the average life of the guy living in an average bishop's house anywhere across the world, particularly those here in Africa?
Okay, so let's go to Tororo. I think Sanjay, you're also standing for National Chairman Entrepreneurs League in NRM Party. Okay, is that how the National Entrepreneurs League in the NRM Party? That's the one you wish to stand for?
Yes, we are in the consultation stages, and when the party.
You're now speaking like these politicians. You're in consultations, and then the people will ask you to stand.
No, it depends. Let's see what happens. We are still in the process.
Yeah.
And Entrepreneurs League is one of those leagues within the party. It's an organ of the NRM party. Like you have the women, the youth.
The women is the one Lydia is leading.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Then for you want to stand for?
MP. Older persons, Eastern Uganda.
Right. So how many of those are in Parliament? 5 people.
And
for the
country. Are they all from NRM party, or we have from opposition as well?
By our law, the electoral law, older person starts at 60 onwards. But in the NRM, older person is 55. Now, yes, in the NRM constitution, older person is 55. Now, if you're 55 in NRM, you're eligible to vote, but you cannot offer yourself for candidates.
Position.
But you are not eligible to stand for a national electoral position.
For national, who votes for the older persons?
Yeah, we elect executives at village level, 5. Then the 5 go to the parish. They form the older persons council at the parish. They elect another executive of 5. The executive at those ones go to the sub county. The sub county go to the district. So there are 5 executives at the district and city level. It is those 5 in each of the districts of Eastern Uganda. In our case, we are 40 districts and 3 cities. So those are the people who are going to vote for me. But you have to do the legwork in the sub-counties across. So I'm going to run from Jinja to Kabera Maido to Katakwi to Vukuo, quite
Okay.
good.
So
That's
stay
why
on the
you-
microphone
you
and
need
tell
to
us
give me
about
fuel.
we know who can give you fuel. But stay on the microphone. Let's start with the districts.
Semuja has promised to give me some fuel, yes.
Let's start with the districts.
Yeah, the district.
Tororo districts. Which ones are being created and why?
No, the controversy began 17 years ago when the side, what we locally there we say the Teso side, that's Tororo County, because Tororo is made up of Iteso, Japadora. Those are the two main, but there are a number of other smaller ethnic groups. For some reasons, our politicians began 17 years ago to say they can't live together. They want Tororo to be declared Iteso territory. Very, very strange. And the people who did that, there has been intermarriages. The people who do that, they can't even speak Ateso. They can't. The Kanyas there, Anguras, and so on. They speak Dopadora actually, because half of their parents. But anyway, strange things happen in politics, and they have taken us this direction of tribal, ethnic chauvinism and sectarianism. It is not the most desirable thing we should have gone for. Tororo had been dismembered into Busia, Butareja, Budaka, Parisa, Kiboko, Butewe. All those were part of Tororo. But because of ethnicity, people demanded, the first group to demand were the Sami of Busia. So they gave them Sami Busia district. Then Butareja, the Banyoli, demanded the district because they said they are not compatible. So they went. Then the bigger Parisa split and went into Parisa. When they reached Parisa, they were Gwere now, Kibuku, Budaka, Butebo, again along ethnic tribal lines. So that's the unfortunate part. But anyway, after 17 years, the president didn't want it, but he has been pushed to this corner. And 2 days ago, he conceded that to create harmony, let us elevate Tororo municipality into a city. I don't know whether that will solve the tribal issues, because as far as I'm concerned, there's nobody who has a business like my brother Sanjay here, who's a businessman, a big businessman in Tororo, whose building, whose products, whose merchandise can't be bought on account that is not an ITES. So we really reached a very unfortunate situation. But anyway, that has been now concluded. And then the president directed that we create, the government has created Mulanda district. Now, that Mulanda district, its headquarters is in front of my gate. Yes, I hope I can sell part of my property now to the government to create it. Yes, I had also built Mulanda House.
It's a landmark for when you say when you are coming, turn right, turn left.
Yeah,
when you are opposite.
Yes. Yeah, you have been there. Now I had also built there Mulanda House, and I built Opondodel Plaza in the village. So I hope the district can now rent. No. But I'm saying it was unfortunate, but now that has been done. and then they have created Mukuju district of what is now Tororo County.
So Sanjay,
that's the one of
Ekanya and Honorable Angura and Honorable Nyakecho, and then a third one whose name is yet to be agreed. He has given us the task, the leaders, to go and build consensus on the name.
Nagongera.
And hopefully the headquarters of that new district.
Thank you for the history and background of Honopono. When I do remember you said 17 years ago, but about 10 years ago when people were nearly eating rats, we invited Sanjay here.
Somebody put a rat in his mouth. When the president went there for campaign, I think 2011.
Yes.
And somebody put a rat in his mouth in a kwapa. He said, I'm going to eat a rat unless you give us the district. And then the president said, You eat the rat, I will not give you the district. And so for this,
then somebody threatened to commit suicide.
Yes, Ekanya removed his necktie in Parliament and tried to, he said he was going to strangle himself, and then we said, strangle yourself, we shall bury you. That's been a comic career.
Oscar, like O has tried to explain, it has been a long journey. Some of us have been a party to it, like he correctly said. The expression of the rat is not true, like he said. The old man, an Iteso elder, was trying to show that for us, we eat rats, and the Japs do not. So in our culture, it's a delicacy, and while this is not, for them it's a taboo. We are different people, so please separate us. And that was the spirit in which that was done.
As Ofono has explained.
No,
now
that is not true.
And
again, it's not the domestic rats you have in our houses, but it is the ones in the bush. But to come to the point, I want to congratulate the people of Tororo. For me, like he has said, I'm primarily a businessman, and as a businessman, these squabbles have been bringing a lot of issues. He explained it correctly that initially we were Bukedi. And with Bukedi, the Iteso in Palisa and Iteso in Tororo would balance the Jopadola and the Bantu that were part of Bukedi, whose headquarters was in Tororo. As Busia went, the Bantus went. As Palisa went, the Bantus and the Iteso went, leaving a large Jap population with a small Iteso population. By the time some of us joined politics, we found that the district resources were skewed because the number of councillors from West Budama were almost double or more than double those from Tororo County. However, the request for the district was predominantly based on what was happening at that time all over Uganda, and districts were about resource allocation. I'll give a small insight. When you look at all the municipalities in Uganda that were turned into cities, for example, today the budget of Jinja or Soroti or Gulu city is in the range of between 10 to 13 billion shillings per annum.
Do you know what is that budget?
No, I allow me, you will give me
that budget of 11 trillion is wages.
Yeah,
so nothing for the district.
So as a city, Tororo is still seated at 900 million per annum municipality. So these people are already getting 13 times more money or 10 times more money out of the national basket than we are as Tororo municipality. And that has been my argument to the elders, that now if West Budama has two districts, like Honorable Semuju is saying, the propensity to grow and the services reaching our people becomes easier. If you look at the most southern tip of West Budama, coming to Tororo Hospital, we had only one government hospital, it's Tororo Hospital, and really the amount of money that Ministry of Health has been allocating to Tororo Hospital, somebody has to drive or ride 50 kilometers to come for services, major services to Tororo Hospital. With this decentralization, services will now go closer to the people. That's the first point. Secondly, is if you look at the road today, Tororo to Nagongera to Budumba, Namtumba, we have been crying for this road time immemorial. We hope that with this extra budget that the new districts will get, we will now be able to connect Tororo to the Great Tirinyi Road and open up the business opportunities of rice growing and all the vegetables that are grown in West Budama, like fruits, tomatoes, and onions, etc. At the moment, the only market we have is Tororo town. The third advantage that comes with this division, rather than hanging around what OO has said is because for me, from day one, I have been neutral on this and I've insisted because there have been Japadola who are married to Iteso and vice versa. There are a lot of other tribes that are settled within the district. There are people who have come from outside and bought land in Malaba, in Tororo, in Nagongera, and we have different tribes of Uganda coming. Because it was Bukedi, you have the Samia, you have the Bagisu, you have the Bagwere, you have the Banyoli, and this really creates for us as people of Tororo, if we select the right leaders in the next election, a stepping stone for becoming the corner of economy, with the border there, with the intersection of the railway, both northern and southern rail.
Thank you.
And the sea route that we have through Busia. Tororo is poised. And we have an airport, by the way. Mbale doesn't have an airport. We have an airfield. 1.8 kilometers long. We can bring down a C-130 in Tororo. And with that kind of infrastructure at our disposal, I think Tororo City and the surrounding districts, the new districts, stand a great chance of takeoff.
Joseph, the premise of this proposal suggests that I probably would not be able to stand for MP in if I create a constituency there, because they're saying one would have to be, and yet the constitution should allow me to.
No, that is terribly almost close to true, but Sanjay again contradicts himself by confirming that indeed he was elected Member of Parliament for Tororo Municipality, for which I credit him as a good friend twice. Right. My first girlfriend I'll release today was Namusisi, fantastic lady at Nagongera Girls School. One of my best friends, but they're coming to Tororo because Bukedi was amongst. Of course, we've got children who write letters. You know what I'm saying? But look, on a serious point, they were coming to Nagongera Girls because Tororo schools, Bukedi schools were the best in the country, and they're coming as boarders. And of course, we're fantastic boys of Nagongera, so the privilege. But my best friend my best friend was Mukasa. From Mukasa, who came, was part of staying in a Gombola. In fact, they left while I was in exile. This tribal nonsense thing that came up, and the Mukasas returned to Uganda, went to Buganda. So Mukasa, this way really jumps. I was born and founded them there in Nagongera. So technically, Mukasa would not be today a councillor or perhaps a member of parliament for the new Nagongera municipality. It's a nonsense, a national leadership thing that must be broken. When particularly the argument is really about services, I don't really agree. We built Bosolo Hospital. We did not, in the 60s, Bukedi was one district. Now, the idea that we need to wait for Nagongera municipality and Nagongera district for us to work on Nagongera road, that I have been campaigning for in the last 20 years. And Sanjay, I don't know whether you're listening to me on the phone. I don't know whether you're listening.
There's this one when I'm coming to Gang, I use Old Kira Road. I don't know if it needs a district status to fix it.
And in fact, I was going to
say, very bad shape.
Indeed, I was actually going to say,
10 kilometers are a district.
Ibrahim is my local member of parliament in Kampala. So technically, they are suggesting that maybe I will have no say in Chira. And yet, many of our friends grew up and were born in Luwero. The multiplicity of spaces in Luwero where Buganda was accommodating and people lived and grew up down there. People did not then go ahead and ask for special districts or special counties called Nagongera special or Teso special. They did not. This thing came from national malaise. On the one hand, this thing about breaking Uganda. And one of the reasons why I'm putting this fantastic T-shirt here, you see, is the Julius Nyerere kind of stuff where we're talking about the East Africanism, but Nyerere and Obote and others focusing on the global Pan-African agenda. We can't say that we want...
You haven't added Museveni in that.
He's not.
That list.
No, he just talks it, but he's not. So you can't talk Pan-Africanism, and at the same time you're breaking communities on the basis of identities. And I agree with both Oforo and my brother Sanjay here. We are a diverse community in Tororo. It took me going to Mwiri when I then came to know Okolong was speaking broken the Padola, but he was coming from Tororo. It did not matter to us, but he was my favorite boy when I was in P2, looking after him. So Granted, districts have been broken up. My concern, as Ibrahim Possible would say, if you look at the number of districts we have as a country, the sustainability of districts, sustainability of parliamentary seats, of course, I'm privileged to be saying that I'm going to be part of Nagongera municipality, possibly, and possibly work with the people of Nagongera to try and make sure that we turn Nagongera into an able decent town.
Hold on one bit. Hold on. So, Goreth, Honorable Namuga. No, hers is Goreth. Nora again tells me, this is what you're saying. Nora Waraga tells me, Tororo municipality raises annual revenue of only 3 billion. And then it is financed by the central government at 69 billion. So where's the sense in even trying to make it a city?
I was trying to learn from my colleague Sanjay while he was making a submission, telling us about how Tororo should get those so many districts and the city based on tribal conflicts. I don't know since when did that become a criteria for allocation of an administrative unit. It is very regrettable. So you can take note. You can take note. You respond later. So I want to first of all, I want to enlighten the country about how resources are distributed. Honorable colleagues, and whoever is listening to us, even if you are given 30 districts in Tororo, just know you are not going to get the resources as you are allowed to. Number one, Honorable Semujuma, my finance minister, knows the shadow, knows how the country is constrained in terms of resources. You ably know that there are cities that were created in phases in 20, they have not been operationalized to date. We still have Entebbe with Wachiso. You have Entebbe, you have Nakasongora, you have Moroto. All these have not yet been operationalized. Even the case for those that were operationalized, like Masaka, Mbale, they still get budgets of municipalities. So we are as a country, no, I want to tell you, you only get salaries, but no capital development. The only money that you got is looking at the infrastructure development under USMID. That is the that's the additional that they got. You see? So we should
like what hospital would they like to emulate?
We should stop being this kind of micro thinking that when you divide so many that's how you'll get resources. Actually, I should say that they are even privileged. They have 1,337 villages. These villages, when you look at the number of parishes that you have and compare yourselves to Wachiso, you get more money than what Wachiso gets with a population of only 639,000. Wachiso is 3.3 million. 3.3, and even Kampala is more populated than you, but you are getting more resources. So for me, I should say we should think broader than this. As a country, don't think of more resources. Actually, you are going to be more constrained. You are going to be more frustrated. You are bringing new administrative units on board. You are going to have hungry councillors who are not going to even afford to pay. But at a national level, for me, I wonder how Mr. Museveni does things. You are here rationalizing agencies and entities of government in the interest of having a lean government. Allegedly, you want to have a lean government, and they told us that they saved close to 1.3 trillion out of that rationalization. I want them to make a calculation on how much we are going to spend once you have the 3 purported districts and one city for Tororo. But even if it was for fairness and equitable distribution of resources, what do you take of Wachiso? Wachiso that has that large population, and by the way, when you look at the income that Wachiso does bring to the government coffers or to the government fund, Wachiso brings more money than Tororo. I would like to interest my colleague from Tororo to go and make research of how much do you bring in the coffers of this country that makes you think that you should broaden administratively, because the expenditure on you is going to be too much. What the government is going to spend to Tororo is equivalent to having 4 cows being looked after by 100 balalu. So, let's look at how much do you generate to the country versus... No, I'm saying you are spending much more. Yes, 10 barrel to look after, So, we should look at how much do you generate to the country and what you are soliciting for. The people of Tororo are very unfair to this country. Look at the population that you have, look at how much you generate to the coffers and make a better bargain. Otherwise... No, that is why we are that. I mean, actually, for me, I'm even disgruntled about how Zimbabwe was divided into four. We have 4 counties now. We have 5 members of parliament taking care of 300, a population of 300 people. 300 just 5 members of parliament. I've never believed in that. Yes, these are the things we should be looking at. So instead of, soliciting for piecemeal, So this piecemeal,
that's what we started with.
This piecemeal creation of
to split on tribal sectarian. I don't agree with this.
So do you agree with that?
Now it has come. We have to live with it.
No. So assume if others also came out with the same criteria, would we also allocate?
That since our formula for allocating central government resources on the districts, yes, our place will now get additional resources, and I'm glad for that.
No, but let me give you a point of advice.
Very quickly,
for fairness, because I'm telling you, they are going to be even more disgruntled than how they have been. They are going to be more frustrated because they are anticipating much more than what they are going to get. I mean, you are dreaming in broad daylight. These guys are just sleeping. Why didn't you propose for at least one city and 1 district? Why do you have to move with those so many? Why?
That's very interesting.
Why didn't you move for that?
Let me squeeze in on Semuju, so we've run out of time.
See, Karamoja, 1.4 million people, 6 district, I think.
No.
9. 26 MPs. I want to interest everybody to read the UBOS report about Karamoja. 60% of the households in Karamoja are still engaged in open defecation. Only 6% are using electricity. 1.4 million people, only 4,000 have a degree. They have the lowest net school attendance, I think, at about 20. So these districts bring nothing. If they were bringing something, we should have started with Karamoja. Karamoja, 70% of people in Karamoja are still sleeping in a home in 1 room, because the average size of household in Uganda is 4.2 people. 70% are sleeping in 1 room like animals. So all the statistics about areas that have been given district status are not bearing Honorable Sanjay Tana out. Wafula had a discussion with Museveni when Museveni was creating Zimbabwe and Wajiri. The discussion, Museveni had refused to create Wajiri. He said it will spoil his politics in Busoga. The Wafulas and others wanted it. Then he said he's creating Zimbabwe because he wants Bararo. They are not Baganda.
Seriously?
Yes, he did. You need to speak to Wafula. So Wafula asked him, won't that spoil your politics in Buganda? He said Buganda is here in Wakiso. So it's not an issue of resources. And Honorable Sanjay Tana, you were one of the best MPs. That I will say whether you are here or not. And I will want to have you any other day in Parliament. You and Otada. No, he's no longer. Him and Otada were independent at one time because he's no longer in Parliament.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The time he was there and Otada, they were very good MPs. You cannot make these arguments of an LC chairman, the arguments you are making today, because you are above that 100 times. 100 times. All the are you saying he's going to make the grade of LC1 chairman discussion?
No, I am saying the argument.
Even in Parliament, they were better than us. Him and Otada, they were extremely experienced, knowledgeable. They were better than us. We are learning from them.
But today is that LC1.
Today the argument.
I am shocked
of the unresolved Tororo issue.
With him in Parliament, when you are borrowing money to do the infrastructure in the municipalities, go to all the municipalities where the roads have been done. They have zero money for maintenance. The World Bank has brought money, we do the roads and abandon them, then 2-3.
Honorable Semunjo, as the shadow of finance, surely you should urge you now that we have made the roads, urge you for money for maintenance.
From where?
Not even I should. I have urged you. From the very beginning. From the very beginning.
We just need a policy review. Tororo is under.
I want to thank
you need
the listeners of Capital Gang. Thank you so much, Honorable Goreth Namuga. We've been missing you. Honorable Ibra Semuju, soon to be Honorable Honopondo, soon to be Honorable Honopondo, soon to be Chairman Sanjay Tana, Joseph Otieno, lifetime UPC member. Thank you so much. Thank you, Star Cafe, for powering the gang. I am Oscar Semoya Msoke. You can still hear the noises going on. We apologize for online access. It doesn't mean so good. But our space on X, formerly Twitter, has been excellent. I am Oscar Semoya Msoke, and I shall see you next week.